this next module, the purpose is to help you form realistic expectations. And my hope is that each of you will have time to evaluate your own expectations and hold them up to Christ's expectations of you. And let's make some adjustments if adjustments need to be made. So let's talk about the importance of this. Why are we talking about expectations? And it is my experience with my classmates and my students is that unrealistic expectations often go unmet and create despair and disappointment, and that aids in the drift. If you are defeated and disappointed, often you give up, because trying just reminds you of your failure to meet your own expectations. But having healthy expectations provide a person in the workforce, or a person laboring in the workforce, a pathway to start fighting, provide fuel to stay engaged in that fight, and they also give you freedom to experience success. You know, it's okay to go, I'm doing it. It's not prideful. I want to hand you the keys to be able to say, I'm living out my passion, and I am fulfilling my expectations to the best of my ability. I want you to be able to say at the end of a workday, I did what I intended to do. I am doing what I intended to do. And as men, that's definitely a high value for us. So really quick, I've got some questions that I'd like to run by you. And they're up at the top there. So take a few seconds and just write down, if you got to use the back of the module page because I didn't give you a lot of room, go ahead and do that. Write down your answer to those 4 questions. When you are trying to live out your passion, you are not living up to your expectation of yourself. How do you respond? Expectation for yourself. How do you respond?
For me, sometimes it's indifference. Like, not what we're pursuing, who cares about that? Let's go pursue something else that's easier. Why make disciples if I can just focus on money or something else?
Yeah. So that's really common. I see this a lot in a lot of my grads. They avoid their passion. And that aids into drift, what Larry was talking about. And that's a protect mechanism. Because as men, we want to feel successful. We want to feel like we're conquering and we are achieving our purposes. We're accomplishing what we set out to do. So avoidance is a big response. That's probably my number 1 response for myself. Because I don't want to face failure. I don't want to feel like a failure. None of you want to feel like you're failing.
I think I kind of like an identity crisis a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, instead of like avoiding it, I like obsess over it. And if I feel like I'm failing, it's like confusing and disorienting.
Yeah, I get that. Any other ones?
And one of the kind of thought from that was like I compare myself to people that I think are like living up to that expectation. You know, if I think like I should be making disciples in my workplace, then I'll compare myself to someone I know that's making disciples in college or whatever it is, whatever arena.
Right.
Compare to someone successful.
Yeah, it can be just a downward spiral. So the blanks that you have right there, realistic expectations are important because unmet expectations create despair and disappointment. Realistic expectations are important because unmet expectations create despair and disappointment. If you wanted to go further with that, when men are in despair, they give up. No one wants to be in despair for years on end, which is what happens for many people in this time period. First year you go to work, it's fresh, it's new, you're like, yeah, I'm the new guy, I don't know what I'm doing. And your expectations are like, not too terribly high. Oh, it's only been like 6 months. Well, maybe I'll start having some relationships with my coworkers. But then you get into 3-year mark, and you can't say that stuff anymore. And then you get to the 6-year mark, and you're like, I've failed. I've wasted the last 6 years. And you give up. And you defend yourself by saying, that was just a college thing. And you move on. I was interacting with somebody in their 50s recently. They said something that really struck me. They said, I believe very little of what I believed when I was 20 today. And I would say that's true even of me at 30. I believe very little about myself of what I believed when I was 20. My theology has shifted so much in the last 10 years. I think I could say that about myself. I view the world so differently today than I did when I left college. So we say our college years are very formative. Well, these years are very formative too. We'd like to think our theology is set in stone. We'd like to think our worldview is set in stone, but it's not. And your expectations will shape what you believe in the future, based upon whether you achieve them or not. So that is why we're talking about this. So let's talk about the environment change of what you are used to what you're moving into today. Let's talk about what is the difference between the college environment and a workforce environment. Just throw them out. What do you think is different? You've already mentioned some of it, but let's hit it again.
Life stage.
Okay, explain what you mean.
Could you repeat that? I can't hear it. You got it. The air conditioner's a little-
Yeah. The question is, what is the difference between the environment you had in college and the environment of the workplace today?
Strong, okay.
Yeah.
Keep it coming.
Yeah, I can do that. So go ahead.
I said life stage. So, like Kurt mentioned, people look for relationships in college, for example, and at work they're not so much.
A lack of diversity. In college, there was people from around the world that came to this university. In the workforce, at least where I'm at, it's all middle class white guys.
So true.
Nice.
I think in college it's okay to not know what you're doing or what you want to do. So you're pretty open, but in the working world, you put up a face or it's expected you know what you're doing and you have something you're striving for and everything's good.
Yeah. Which we know a lot of that is not reality. Larry said men lead quiet lives of desperate, what was it?
Maybe Henry David Thoreau said, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet
desperation. There we go. I had it out of order.
No truer statement has ever been said, and that's true of everybody that we rub shoulders with in the marketplace."
Yeah.
Maybe for me, my first week on my first job, I couldn't take a nap at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Why not?
I mean, the expectation to get up in the morning and go to work and have to work the whole day, it was like it was consuming and I was exhausted.
So the expectations of you are different.
I'm going to bounce off what he said. In college, it's a routine. You stick to a schedule. You have this at this time, classes at this time. Whereas the job I'm doing now, one day I'll work an 8-hour shift from like early in the morning to a little in the afternoon, and then the next day I'll work from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. And the next day I might work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it's a matter of you can't really adjust sometimes. Sometimes you just get stuff thrown at you and you got to be able to catch it and just take it in stride.
Well, here's some thoughts for you guys. In college, everyone is relatable as peers. In college, everyone is relatable as peers. That's not true of the workforce. In the workforce, you're not all peers. You have age gaps. You have life stage differences. And there's a chain of command. So in a chain of command, you relate to a superior different than you relate to someone of the same rank. You relate to someone of a lower rank differently as well. You don't really have that in college. In college, balancing life is simple. Doesn't seem like it is, but it is. You have a 3-lane highway, to use Larry's example. You have school, you have friends, and you might have work. So really, it could be 2. It's pretty simple. In the workforce, you could have way more than that. Bills, kids, church, friends, spouse, family, you got a yard to take care of, and you got a job. Responsibilities are way more numerous. Balancing life is just a little more complicated. College, you have abundant available time. And you have abundant unstructured time to relate with people. In the workforce, you have limited available time and limited unstructured time to relate with people in most jobs. You can put it this way as well. In college, you have unlimited time. Or wait, I'm getting that backwards. In college, you have limited time and unlimited people. And in the workforce, you have limited people and unlimited time with them. You're like, that doesn't sound right. But you actually do, because they're going to be at work tomorrow. You're going to have another opportunity, and then another opportunity after that, and the next day, and the next day. So you have unlimited time. It's just in 8 or fewer hour segments. So college, unlimited people, limited time with them. You only get 1 semester to 4 years with somebody. In the workforce, you have unlimited time, but limited people. Another aspect of the environment that is different is college is an environment of learning It's an environment of exploring. Those things are encouraged. It's good to ask questions. It's good to defy common knowledge in order to learn. And it's kind of encouraged to be controversial, to press the edge of what the norm is. In the workforce, you're in an environment of professionalism. It is a limited environment of learning just for the task at hand. It's not the norm to explore your life at work or to grapple with really deep questions about the world and the universe. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Larry?
Extremely insightful, and I think just kind of going along with it, it's the, if we think of appliances, on the college campus, the urgency came through in terms of it's like a microwave. The intensity, the pressure, and so we still want to engage with people, but now in the workforce, for the reasons that you just said, and you nailed it, it's now we're in a crock pot. And so it doesn't mean those things are important, but the time it takes to cook, is longer, because like if you're in a cubicle with 6 other people, and that's your arena, on the college campus, you take a survey at a dorm door and they don't like you just go to the next door, they get mad at you, you go to the next floor, it's just like, and in Illinois State, we had buildings that were the dorms were 26 stories tall. Oh man, that'd take you a couple years, so you just keep moving. But in the workforce, if you burn your bridges in a cubicle with 6 people, you got to go get another job. And so that's a mind shift to be able to do what you said, the unlimited people in limited time, so now there's limited relational abilities and longer period of time. So we're moving from a microwave to a crock pot. Still cooking though.
Microwave is 2 minutes, probably average, right? Crock pot is anywhere from 3 to 8 hours. And that really is a great example. That is the paradigm shift. The scale of an investment of time is just vastly different.
So it doesn't mean it's not important. It's the level of urgency. And when we're coming off the college campus, we're urgent about a lot of things. And there's a lot of people in the workforce that'll go, hey, slow down, boy. Just slow down.
Right. So why is knowing this important? Or knowing what we just discussed important? There's probably more that we can talk about, but what I'm trying to help you see, it is unrealistic to carry your expectations of yourself and your personal ministry in college with you into the workforce. It's not only unrealistic, it's unreasonable. It's illogical. And yet, we don't have another framework when we come out of college to adopt, so we don't know what else to do. So we just keep the tools we've already had. And that's what I want to help you kind of shift the mindset of. And again, unmet expectations will always leave you discouraged and disappointed. So if you have these microwave expectations from college, you're going to fall flat on your face. Yeah. So think about your college ministry expectations. They just kind of need to die or adjust. I'm serious. They should be different enough so that you don't get discouraged, so that you don't get disappointed, and you don't diminish your will to pursue your passion. So let's talk about how your college ministry expectations must change when in the workplace. So that's that blank there on your page. They must change. And the first thing that needs to change is your timetable. Your ministry timetable has to change. And here's a few reasons why. It will take you more time to build relational capital with coworkers than college peers. It'll take vastly more time. In college, you could go and spend 8 hours in somebody's room if you skipped a few classes, and probably by the end of that 8 hours, you'd have a pretty good friend. It is unreasonable to think that you could do that in the workplace. It will take more time to create spiritual capital and mutual respect amongst coworkers as well. Respect comes pretty easy in college. You could go out and play ultimate frisbee and gain some respect. You can get good grades on tests, gain respect. You could just carry the title senior and gain respect. People just throw respect out in college. It's much harder earned. Seriously, it is so easy to gain respect. So, I think that's why the Navigators do so well on a college campus. It doesn't take us that long to earn respect. So when you take a 3-month personal ministry semester goal, like, this semester I want to share the gospel with somebody. That's reasonable in college. But it would be foolish for you to take that kind of a goal and transport it into the workplace. A 3-month goal in college, at the very least, could turn into a 6-month goal, or I would say at the least a year goal in the workforce. And I don't even like to use that. I don't want to put numbers into your mind. But I'm just trying to show you the time scale is just so much different. And that's okay. Let's talk about capacity and availability, right? Your expectations of your own capacity and your own availability should also shift. You cannot expect to be as available as you were in college. Your relational capacity will be less because your responsibility is more. Your relational capacity will be less because your responsibility is so much more. And that goes the same for your coworkers. So I have two 3-year-olds at home right now. Let me tell you, my capacity to engage with people past 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock has significantly decreased since I have had kids. So your coworker that you ask, hey, you want to go grab a beer or something after work? Or let's go to a ball game this weekend. They're like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to sleep in on Saturday. And they just have no interest. A 40-year-old might not have any interest in that because their capacity is less. Because they're on a 12-lane highway or an 8-lane highway or whatever amount of things they're juggling. So your expectations of your own capacity should shift, and your expectations of other people's capacity and availability need to shift too. So we've talked about your timetable, we've talked about capacity and availability. Let's talk about success. Each of you has a picture in your mind of what ministry success looks like. And chances are it more closely resembles what it did in college than probably what it should look like today. I mean, success can't just be building a relationship to the point where I can sit down and read the Bible with somebody. It can't just be if I can build a relationship so I can have a one-on-one. Or if I can share the gospel with somebody, then I will have done what I wanted to do today. Or this month, or whatever the timetable is. Like, those were tangible goals in college, and they were very achievable in a short amount of time. But they're not necessarily short-term tangible or achievable in the workplace. If you reframed your mind to think what we're about to talk about, you're going to be much better served. So what I'd encourage you to do is lay aside your personal expectations of your ministry and adopt what Christ's expectations in Scripture are. Jesus says, "My burden is light." And if you are feeling discouraged and are in despair about what you're accomplishing at work, it is probably because you are not carrying his yoke. It's because you're carrying your own. You have put a weight on your shoulders that you weren't meant to pull. So let's talk about that. Let's look at that together. Let's talk about Christ's realistic expectations. We're going to look at two familiar passages. We've already looked at them today. We're just going to look at them through different lenses. Let's flip to Matthew 28, 18 to 20. And we're going to look at Matthew 22, 36 to 39. And let's look at the greatest commandment first. So let's look at Matthew 22 first. So put yourself in the shoes of the person asking this question. What's the greatest commandment? Except switch commandment to expectation. Because a commandment is an expectation, right? It's an expectation that you do what I'm asking you to do. So here you are, you're posing this question, and the first words out of Jesus' mouth is not 2 Timothy 2:2. It's not. What is it? That's a great expectation. And you know what's helpful about that when you combine it with the Great Commission? Is he says, "And lo, I am with you always." So if I'm supposed to love the Lord my God with all my heart, mind, and soul when I go to work, guess who's there with me at work? The Lord. So you can get up in the morning, you can go to work, and if at the end of the day you can say, "To the best of my ability, I love the Lord, my God, with all my heart, with all my soul and all my strength today," that is a good day. That's a good day. That is one expectation he has. What's the second greatest commandment? Man, when you go to work, do you go to work and then come home and think, "Man, I did a great job loving people today"? Or do you go to work going, "I couldn't get that guy to come out and have a beer with me after work"? Do you go to work and then come back and think, I had a really great 2-minute conversation at the water cooler today, and I think that person felt loved"? Like, does that hit your success list, or is that like oh, that's kind of a thing I need to do every day anyway? But I didn't do what I really wanted to do. You need to redefine what your ideal picture of success is. Because Jesus didn't say, My second greatest expectation of you is that you share the gospel every single day at work. Let's flip to Matthew 28, 18 to 20. Currently taking a Greek class, or an ancient Greek class, is blowing my world up about how I read Scripture, and it's just really changing how I read passages that I've claimed for the last 10 years. So I was looking at the Great Commission in the original Greek. What's the first command in the Great Commission? Go. And what's the second one? Make disciples. What is the subject of that sentence? It's actually none of those things. None of you said the right answer. The subject is make disciples, but in Greek, you can have a larger than one word as a subject. So go, the word go has the same ending that signifies it as part of the subject as the word make disciples. So his expectation is to go and make disciples. That's the subject. That's the subject matter of his command. The going and the making. It's not one or the other, it is both and. So when you go to work, do you come home and say, I engaged the lost today. I went. I went. I sought them out. Because if you do, you are fulfilling Christ's expectation through the Great Commission. That is part of the picture. If you sit at the front desk with a receptionist who answers phone calls, and you give her 5 minutes of your time and just show her the love of Christ in a very tangible way, at the end of the day, you can go home and say, I did what Jesus asked me to do. Maybe not what Nate asked Nate to do, but I did what Jesus asked me to do. So 3, go. That's a great expectation and a great measuring stick for your life and your passion. Did I go today in some form? And if you go enough, it leads to number 4, making a disciple, making a learner. And let's not discount the rest of the expectation either. This isn't the subject of the sentence, but it is part of the command. So you're supposed to baptize people in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? That word basically means to immerse them in. Am I immersing my workforce, or the people that I work with a picture of who Jesus is? With a picture of who God the Father is. And if the Lord so graces me that I do have a person that I am intentionally pouring my life into, am I immersing them in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? That's part of the command, but not the subject. And am I teaching his commands? It's a great measuring stick too. So one of my hobbies is I do play video games. I'm 30 and I still play video games. I don't play many of them anymore. But it's a great example of this. So I'm playing online with some guys in New York City. I play with them all the time. And they said to me, this was 2 months ago, they said to me, Nate, someday you're just going to blow off a bunch of F-bombs. Because I never cuss when I play with these guys. And they can hear my voice the whole time we play. And there was dead silence over our headsets. And one of the 5 guys that I play with goes, why is that? And I got to sit there and explain to him how I want to honor the Lord with my words. those guys don't know Jesus, but I taught a commandment that day. That was a good day. It wasn't at the office, though, so I mean. But that's a good day. You can teach a commandment, and you'll get a lot of opportunity to do that. Living out Christ's expectations should leave us. I lost myself in my own thing. Oh, yeah. Should leave us fueled, fighting, and freed. Living out Christ's expectations for yourself should leave you fueled, fighting, and freed. Because Christ's expectations provide a pathway to engage in the fight. They provide fuel to stay engaged, because at the end of the day, you can say, I did that, and that gives you fuel. I'm fulfilling my passion. And it provides you the freedom to say, I am succeeding. And the enemy wants nothing less than to make you think you are failing. Because if you're failing, you'll get disappointed, you'll be in despair, and you'll give up. So you have to fight the good fight to know where you stand before God and His expectations of you, and say, I am or I am not engaging in those expectations, fulfilling those expectations. Everybody flip to 2 Corinthians 2, 14 to 16. 2, 14 to 16, sorry. Who has a New American Standard?
You are.
Is there any other translation? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I do have one. Did you want me to read?
Yeah, read it, Larry.
2 Corinthians 2,
14 to 16.
so 2 Corinthians 2, 14 to 16. But thanks be to God who always leads us in His triumph in Christ and manifests through us the sweet aroma of the knowledge of Him in every place. For we are a fragrance of Christ to God among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. To the one an aroma from death to death, and to the other an aroma from life to life. And who is adequate for these things?
If you read on, it talks about who is adequate.
Oh, did you want me to keep going?
No, you don't. This is just extra. If you read on, he answers that question. It's a great answer. I love that verse.
Yeah, it is.
Christ always leads forth in triumph. Isn't that just a manly sounding verse? His expectations and His commands for us, when we live them out, He is triumphant. If you go to work and you don't share the gospel, but you love people really well and do your job really well, He's leading you forth in triumph. And over time, you will see the fruit of it. Because you smell like Jesus. Because you smell like life. And life smells good. And to believers, you smell like death. Your coworkers that know Jesus, they'll see that you're intentional and that you're laying your life down. And that's a good day at the office too. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to give the Lord an opportunity right now to make a heart shift where you lay down your expectation of yourself and try to adopt these very clear commandments and expectations of yourself. So, let's see here. I've got 10 minutes. And I put a little example prayer down because if I'm sitting where you're sitting, I'm already like drowning in some of the information that I've been given. and I wouldn't necessarily know how to apply or put on what I was just given. So I gave you an example of how to pray about this. You're welcome to use it, but if you guys would take some time and maybe share a little bit about what you just heard, and then just ask God to transform your expectations of yourself and to help you experience freedom and at the end of the day feel like you're succeeding. All right, let's go for it.